Hello, welcome to Making Revenue Tick. I'm delighted to be joined by Craig Booth. Craig, hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to see you again, as always.
I know, right? I know we just had a little talk off air, the fact that your surname is actually a big part of my family. I've got a whole tribe of Booths in Wiltshire, in England, and you said that you're actually from the English stock.
Yes, 100%. So we've done the genealogy. 3 brothers left in like 1690 to come to the U.S. before it was even a country, and we came from England.
Yeah, amazing. Well, as are the Washingtons, right? The Washingtons were in a place near Sunderland in England, and then they moved over. It was like, I'm related to George Washington. You're related to my family. We're basically all family here. Where are you in the world? Where are you in the world now, Craig?
I'm in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Okay, wonderful. Perfect. Well, look, so let's catch people up on this. So we're going to talk about why old school thinking in channel won't generate you results in 2024. And you wrote a wonderful LinkedIn article about the 5 lies and 1 truths of channel, which I thought would be a perfect conversation for this podcast. So could you just tell us really quickly, for anyone who doesn't already have the pleasure of knowing you, a bit about your background and the type of businesses you've made a career out of helping?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Craig Booth. I am a channel sales consultant. I've been doing this for probably 2.5, 3 years now. I'm an author of a book called Channel Force, and I've got a couple other publications that I put out. I've also got a blog that I've got about 1,100 channels people subscribing to. My career has been half in direct sales and half in MSP and channel sales leadership. I didn't aspire to move into channels. Back in the day, I used to work for Juniper as a sales rep on the infrastructure side, selling into Verizon. And part of my responsibility was getting products certified for Verizon to go and resell as a managed service offering. They asked me to put a go-to-market strategy together. I found out after we grew our business from 5 million to 111 million in 5 years that I was in channels. And that's sort of my genesis for moving into channels. But I took the methodology that I built, I took it to a couple other places. I've had tremendous success growing companies of all sizes, very small companies, all the way up to billion-dollar companies using some of the processes and methodologies that I've built. So,
fantastic. And what was the inspiration behind the article? So why did you come up with the 5 lies and 1 truths concept?
Yes, this is kind of an interesting story. So my son and I went to a men's conference for the church that we go to, and the pastor of this church was doing a sermon called 5 Lies and 1 Truth. And I thought, wow, that applies to the channel. The same thing. There are like 5 lies that we all believe, and there's a couple of universal truths that we should really hold on to. So I sort of took that process and applied that into one of my blog posts. So
okay,
that's the genesis. But it's also something that I think goes back to sort of the original topic here, Richard, which is there are lots of challenges with the way people think about a go-to-market strategy and the way we think about leveraging partners that need to be corrected for today's market. So we'll talk obviously in more depth about that. But.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been singing this hymn for a long, long time. Not to sort of coin on from your church story too much, but the channel in many companies is kind of like the poor cousin to direct sales. And there's definitely, we all know, a big belief that if you just recruit more channel partners, then your revenue will scale. In the same way that if you just add more sales people to your company and just extend your spreadsheet, then your revenue will scale. And we know that thinking's broken, particularly in channel, because people tend to give their channel partners much less love than they do their direct revenue teams. So I'm really curious to understand a bit more about this and these 5 lies, because my knowledge of channel is not as current as yours. But what I hear from customers a lot is, hey, yeah, we're going to do a big indirect channel play. Channel is really important for our business. So what we're doing is we're going to put half an AE's time onto building the channel. And I'm like, I don't think that's really going to work. Or they just want to build a channel and they say, right, can you just hire a channel person? And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, yeah, someone to just run the channel. And so it's really like undefined. It's not the same level of impact filtering that's required around the role, that's the thinking about how to go and build it. I think a lot of these people are just left to get on with it without much structure and methodology behind what they do. And if they've been successful in another company, surely we can just plug and play it. And I think a lot of that thinking's broken. From what I've said there, Craig, how much of those things that I've told you I'm hearing from customers are what you hear in your conversations?
It's what I live every day. But I want to address one thing that you mentioned up the top, which is sort of this devaluing of the channel in companies versus a direct sales organization. This is a huge problem with the channel in general, and it's a problem because we have an execution and visibility gap that the direct sales teams don't have, and a control gap. So when you sit back and you look at the way that companies value direct sales, why do they value direct sales? Because they can put a strategy in place. They can measure the execution of that strategy of their employees. They can control those employees, and they can essentially control outcomes. So it creates value for that. We can draw a direct line between the activities of a seller and the end result, where in the channel, we can't often, because we stop at enablement, and from enablement to deal registration is a big black box for most channels. We don't know what the partner's doing, how that registration showed up. We can't draw a direct line between our activity and the end result. There's a gap that sits in the middle, and that's why the channel is typically devalued in this process. So part of what I've done is I've looked at that gap and said, hey, how do we go and fill that gap in so that we can create a process that's on par with the direct sellers, that we can show strategy execution. We can build a strategy. We can show, we can enable the strategy execution at the partner. We can capture the prospecting activity, and we can draw that direct line between what we do and the end result that puts us on par with the channel. So going back to the original question of people just sort of hire channel people and expect something to work, it doesn't work that way. We really have to put an emphasis on building the recipe, the strategy, and enabling that strategy all the way through to the partner seller. And the real focus should be on the partner seller, between the partner seller and the target market and what they're doing, as opposed to partner level metrics. So that's a high level view right there. So we'll talk obviously more about that.
Cool. So we're definitely going to pigeonhole that partner seller thing for a bit later on in the conversation. I know it's a key part of your value proposition. Let's put some metrics behind how big this opportunity is. So why is channel such a big opportunity for tech startups who are looking to scale in 2024?
Yeah, by the way, that is a great question. And I think it's really important. Everything comes down to reach and speed to value, or time to value. And so when you start looking at hiring a direct sales team, and just look at us personally, if we went through our LinkedIn, we probably have, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, whatever the number of connections we have. But if we start scoring those connections for how many people we have a trusted advisor relationship with within a targeted ICP, if I'm a territory rep, I may be able to walk you into 10 accounts where I have a really great relationship with people that I can open the door. But my territory is 50, 100 accounts or more. So how do I address the other 90 accounts, right? And that's the power of the channel. Every one of those partners that you sign up, if you enable them properly, those sellers all have 5,000 people on LinkedIn, another 15 to 20 people that they have direct strategic relationships with that they can walk you in. So it's like getting into the HOV lane, right? So to quantify the opportunity, you can sit in traffic doing outbound marketing, trying to get people to come to your website, doing all that. Or you can leverage relationships and the power of those relationships from the partner community. But you got to structure that in order for it to work well. So that's interesting. That's the opportunity.
And what about in terms of the amount of revenue? So if you look at and I know this will vary dramatically, but you might have some examples. What's the typical amount of revenue that you see successful tech businesses doing through channel versus indirect?
Yeah, so everything depends on the model. There's hybrid models, there's pure channel models, there's sort of ad hoc channel models where you're primarily direct, and every once in a while you'll throw something from a referral perspective through a partner. So it all depends on the channel model. What I will tell you, for the smaller channels, your Series A, Series B, Series C type companies, if you build the channel properly, you should be seeing close to 2x revenue growth early on. And of course, the law of large numbers, as we get larger, it's harder to generate 2x revenue growth. But there still should be a significant trajectory of revenue growth by creating that structure underneath. So I think, going back to sort of answer the question in a broader sense, there's a huge opportunity, and obviously it all depends on your market, growth strategy, the strength of your solution, and of course the effectiveness of your strategy. But for me, I'm always targeting 2x revenue growth at half the cost. I know it sounds crazy. People think, oh, you can't do that, and I show them, well, I've done it 3 times. So let me show you again how we do it. So anyway.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, 2x revenue growth at half the cost. I don't think many people aren't going to buy that one.
Well, yeah. What's interesting though, and I get this all the time, right? I always talk about 2x revenue growth, and I've had a couple CROs say, "Oh, you can't do that." When I start showing you the metrics and the methodology and how we build the plan to generate that and show the metrics we have to hit to get there, now it's just a matter of execution. So when people start to see that we're building the channel in a much different way and we're putting metrics in place, the light bulb goes off to say, oh yeah, I guess I can do 2x revenue growth, and here's the metrics to get there. So
yeah,
anyway,
makes a lot of sense. It's like what you talked about, it is like this, it's the black box, isn't it, of sales, in that it's really hard to measure. And I think a lot of people just accept that it's hard to measure. But if you can't measure it, then how on earth are you going to know where you should invest? So the whole principle of being able to generate 2x revenue from half the cost, you have to know where to spend the money. And without the right data, that's impossible. So I can imagine it's very, very easy to spend a lot of money on channel without showing any return from it.
Yes.
Which is something that obviously everyone wants to avoid. How important is that clinical attribution and being able to sort of trace, here's what I need to go and put in terms of inputs to get this output? How important are the inputs to the outputs within channel?
Yeah, I think that's super important. It's actually a great leading question, because if we don't put the right inputs in and we don't have the right methodology for how we're going to build a go-to-market strategy, we don't end up with what we need. And there's a bunch of fallacies out there, right? So one is all about recruiting partners. So think about it. The average channel runs an 80-20 rule, where 80% of the revenue is generated by 20% of the partners. That means literally 80% of your partners are underperforming. All right, 80% of your partners are operating as fulfillment partners, or they're not operating as can't even speak, strategic partners, right? So the idea that we're at this partnership level, rather than taking the metrics down to active sellers, and that's the secret to part of the secret to what I do, is we don't measure partnerships, we measure sellers within partnerships and their reach to our target market. And by starting to measure that, we can do trending analysis. If I have 40 active sellers, and an active seller is always prospecting in 4 accounts, that's 160 accounts that we're prospecting in. And I have a math equation that follows behind that with engagement rates and conversion rates and average deal size. So if I want to double revenue, if I double 40 active sellers to 80 active sellers and 160 accounts to 320 accounts that we're prospecting in, and the math equation holds true, we're going to double revenue, right? So getting down and looking at the number of active sellers, not the number of partners, is the secret to revenue growth in the channel. So we have to change the way we're thinking about channels in order to really generate that kind of revenue growth. But it's something we do and can do.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? If you had a casino, I'm not saying that either of us are betting men.
Yeah,
if you went to a casino and you knew that every time you put a pound in the top of a slot machine, you were going to get 2 out, how many times would you put money in the top of the slot machine?
No, exactly, right. And so, and that's part of that fallacy, right? That just recruiting a partner doesn't equal activity or results. It just means that I have access to sellers. That's all that partnership means. So how do you then turn up those sellers?
Absolutely. And who do you think will be watching this today? So obviously we've got our big tasty hook. There's a bunch of really interesting numbers behind this. The opportunity seems huge. Who is this relevant for, Craig?
Yeah, so I have like three target markets that I try and position what I do with. So the CRO obviously is an obvious answer. The channel sales leader is an obvious answer, but also going down to a channel account manager. Um, all of this is relevant throughout that entire chain. So any revenue leader within a company that is looking to grow their revenue, find a new route to market, and make it efficient. Um, what I do is certainly relevant, and this conversation will be relevant for those folks.
What are the most common frustrations that you think that a CEO or a CRO at a startup will be feeling that this is going to help to answer?
Yeah, so and this is a conversation I have with a lot of different CROs. So one of the biggest issues that every CRO faces is how do I demonstrate the value of the channel to my board? That's one of the biggest issues. And then how do I demonstrate that I have a strategy that I can execute and show the value of that channel to the outcomes that I'm looking for? And that's where I was talking about that gap earlier. That becomes really difficult for CROs to go and message that up, because what ends up happening every time there's a deal and it's a co-sell opportunity, the direct team says, "Hey, I did that. I closed that deal." Right. And I take nothing away from it. The direct teams do an amazing job supporting partners. But it doesn't mean there's equal value from, or that there wasn't equal value from the partner and the channel account team to go and deliver that deals. But it's just natural to devalue the partner and devalue the channel account manager. So with that being said, it really is about how do we leverage that entire community and show that attribution up through the CRO into the board. And then that same thing happens on the channel side, right? How do I show that I have a strategy if I'm a channel chief that is going to align with the company goals, that's going to help me deliver the kind of results that the company is expecting, and that I can put measurement and accountability into that process, which is what's typically missing. So those are the things that we're doing at the channel leadership level. We're giving them a strategy, something that's scalable, that's repeatable, and we're just out measuring against that. So
makes a lot of sense. We recorded one of these Making Revenue Tick episodes a few weeks ago with an amazing CRO over in Massachusetts called Bradley Pastor. And he talked about, the topic was how to expand into America without making an ass of it. And we talked about building an organization over in the US, something that EIMS did, which is obviously how we're connected through Ramon, who introduced us. And we built a site over in America. I was part of that team that went over in 2017. But he talked about how it's a really good way to go and tackle the American market if you're not prepared to go all in and invest into a North American expansion like we were. You could do it through channel, and you can find some amazing partners that will help you to accelerate those results. And they've already got the relationships, they understand the market, they've got all the legal entities, all that good stuff. How often do you see channel being used as a tool to expand into different markets and geographies?
Yeah, almost all the time, everybody's focused on trying to figure out how to leverage partners as the first foray into a new geography. So it's pretty common, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But again, going back even through that, it all comes down to understanding your target market. Who am I going after? What's the ecosystem that surrounds that target buyer, that economic buyer? And how do I leverage that ecosystem to develop partnerships and a partnership strategy? So it's not quite as simple as just signing up partners. We need to understand how we need to use those partners and fit them into a larger strategy for how we go to market.
Yeah, amazing. Perfect. Well, so if you are a CEO, CRO, VC, PE, and you're looking to either expand into a new market or you want to demonstrate the value of channel and make sure you've got a methodology that you know that you can put some money in and get some money out, then this is for you. So let's talk about your article then, Craig, this wonderful 5 lies and 1 truth. What was the number 1 lie? So talk us through number 1 on your list.
Yeah, so the first one is probably build it and they will come, right? And that's part of that fallacy. And it really dovetails into what we just talked about, right? The idea that, hey, if I just go out and recruit partners, I should end up with revenue and activity. And that's, people often think of the channel as literally for lack of a better term, an ATM machine, right? The idea that um, all you have to do is hire partners. We'll build a good incentive program behind that, and we're going to move it forward. And by the way, that worked a long time ago. Back in the 80s when we first started with Computerland, and there weren't a lot of partners, and there weren't a lot of additional technology companies. You could build a good partner program. You could put incentives in place, and that was enough to sort of create the leverage that you need with the partner community to create activity. Today, there are so many technologies that are out there and so many partner programs, and everything sort of bleeds together. It's really hard to get the attention of the partner community with just a partner program. So we're missing the second half of this equation. So the book that, my book, which is called Channel Force, the reason it's called Channel Force is because we take the formula for force, mass times acceleration, and that creates force, right? So we focus a lot on building partner mass. So we build a lot of different, partnerships, and we try and recruit tons of partners, but we fail to add the acceleration part to create the force. In other words, we're not working on the recipe that we want the partner seller to go and execute with the target market that actually creates that force. So I think there's, that's where a lot of this stuff falls apart.
Okay. It's interesting because I was going to ask you about like where this comes from, build it and they will come. Surely it can't be from Wayne's World. And you've said it's from like the 80s and Computerland. If it's that long ago since it was like that, what are some of the ways that in let's say the last 10 years, people have been experiencing a bunch of success in channel? And now it's way harder. So rather than those 80s examples, what are some of the more recent examples where it was much easier than it is today that are giving this false sense of security and false sense of how easy it is versus the actual reality that people are facing in 2024?
Yeah, and that comes back to the fact that everything has really changed. So think about where we were 10, 15 years ago, where we were delivering our value from a tech perspective in pizza box, appliances that we were putting out, right? So everything was a tier 2 distribution model where companies would build their routers and build their switches and their firewalls, whatever we were out delivering, and they would sell that to a set of distributors who would then distribute that downstream to all the partner community. Well, the minute that we started shifting from hardware into more software and cloud, it changed the model completely. Now we're not selling these pizza boxes anymore. We're selling subscriptions, and we're selling software as a service everywhere. So that has been a huge disruption to the channel. So the old models that we used to put in place, the old compensation models, the old distribution models, all of that has changed. And that change is really forcing us to think differently for how we go to market with our products and solutions. So we can't use a playbook from 10 years ago in today's market. It's built for different things. So
Makes a lot of sense. Can you give us a real example of a company who, it doesn't have to be a specific company, name them, but just an example so people can kind of get a sense for this, where someone's tried to deploy channel in a SaaS environment and it's just failed. It hasn't delivered the revenue.
Yeah, so I don't have to give a specific example. I can tell you that there's thousands of those examples out there. over 50% of partnerships fail. So just that number alone should position that. I work with companies that are on, not all companies, but some of the companies I've worked with are on their second attempt at trying to develop a structured channel model. The other comment I'd make, one statistic that also speaks to that, is the average channel chief today spends only 18 months, 18 to 24 months in his role before he's cycled out. And the reason for that is they are struggling to solve the revenue, ROI, relevance, execution challenges with the partner community and with the channel. And they're struggling to solve that because we're operating under this opportunistic fulfillment model of the past. So, with that as the backdrop, they're just, I think anybody that's been around channels or been around the SaaS world can tell you that the channel rarely lives up to the expectation, but it's not the fault of the channel. I believe that fault lies somewhere else, which we'll talk about.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I think I was speaking to Tom Glasson from Pavilion, and he was saying that the actual average tenure of a CRO now is 17 months. So, if you talk about the amount of window of opportunity that these people have to actually come in, implement change, get a methodology up the ground and start to show an ROI, it's getting shorter and shorter, that runway, as cash becomes more precious.
Yep. Yeah, and I feel like these CROs are in that exact same situation because, it's not just the change in the technology. Consumer buyer behaviors have changed dramatically. So 44% of millennials don't want to talk to a sales rep. So how do you engage with that person, right? And this whole SDR BDR move that we have today that everybody's fully engaged with, nothing wrong with that model, although it's losing its effectiveness. Why is it losing its effectiveness? Because we're all getting pounded constantly. And just one quick story, which you'll appreciate, Rich. I had my website redone a year ago, and I made the mistake of going to Upwork and putting in, hey, that I'm looking to hire a developer to upgrade my website. And Upwork was fantastic. The problem was that I had 40-something people bid on my website, and it took 2 months. Like literally, I was getting 8 calls a day for 2 months and emails flowing in. I thought, this is the penalty. It took me 3 days to pick who I wanted, and I had a 2-month penalty behind it. But that's the SDR, BDR. It's the same thing for the client. If you go and you fill out a gate form on somebody's website and you download a PDF because you're exploring an opportunity, you're going to get pounded for who knows how long. For going in and bringing down that gate form. So it's a huge issue, and those types of issues are what's causing problems for CROs. It's just changes in the market, and we have to adapt.
Yeah, makes sense. And so let's talk about helping with this particular build it and they will come lie. And you've talked about the challenge of actually getting the attention and the buy-in of partners. What are some of the golden rules around how to create an attractive partner channel that partners actually want to go and sell your stuff?
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of things that fit into that. So this is probably a broader conversation down below, but I'm going to give you sort of a principle that that I usually try and align. So the first and foremost, partner sellers always sell the easiest and most profitable thing to sell. They're all super smart. They got 50 things they can go out and sell, and they're looking at what's easy, where there's market pull from the market, and what's profitable. And they will sort of align their activities around those things because they're in the business of making a living just like we all are, right? So if we don't make it easy and we don't make it profitable, we're never going to get the attention of the partner seller, which is where all that activity. And by the way, partner seller can also be an SE. So it's getting the attention of those guys to go and deliver results. So one of the secrets that you do is you have to build a strategy, and you have to package that strategy into a sales play, and you have to create incentives at every level of the process for the partner seller. And when you do those things, you will end up creating the activity that you need, and that's, again, going to end up delivering results. Because it's you've got to take partners and you've got to make them proactive. You just don't, partner sellers that are reactive don't really produce. So it's all about proactive activity.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I think the next one of your lies, we've already touched on in a bit of detail, which was what worked in the past will still work in the future. But we haven't talked much about the future. So talk for us in a bit more detail around this lie and what it means to you.
Yeah. So, we did cover quite a bit of this earlier, but this is one of the biggest challenges, right? Every one of us have a playbook that we've worked with success. I spent, at one point, I went through like 5 years without losing a deal when I was a direct seller and made a lot of money. And, I had a playbook that I was operating. And then I moved to one role and my playbook didn't work anymore. And I had to respin the playbook, and it didn't work anymore because the market had changed, but I hadn't changed. And so it got me thinking about, hey, you know what? I had great success. I felt like I could run this way, this style of selling and what I was doing over and over and over. And it's a mistake that we all make because we're all human. We all like to feel good about ourselves. We all try and simplify our jobs and make sure that we can produce. And whatever we've done in the past, we just keep running it over and over. It's like being a soccer coach or American football coach. We have a play that's working. We just keep running it, right, to success until the defense stops it. But at some point, people get smart and they figure out how to stop it. And if we don't adjust, we lose, right? So that's the problem with a lot of folks today is that we hire people that bring their old playbook in without understanding the nuances of what's happening today. And rigid playbooks and rigid leaders don't produce results, and they end up on that 17-month, 18-month cycle, if that makes sense. So for all the PEs and VCs that are listening and all the CROs that are listening, my encouragement, look for people that are innovative, look for new ways and new approaches to do things, and you'll end up in a much better spot. So anyway.
Amazing. I love that. I love the idea because we hear it all the time. Playbooks is one of the biggest topics in sales leadership, and it's absolutely true. That whilst the first principles might not change, the how has to evolve and change. And it's the same in my world of recruitment. How we go and find talent, the actual how can change quite a lot, but what we're looking for doesn't change that often. How we speak to people doesn't change that much, but the ways that we communicate with them through different platforms will absolutely change, as well as their expectations will change, and therefore how we have to change our messaging to make sure that we resonate. And knowing that used to be seen as quite a good thing has suddenly become a bit of a turn off and a red flag for people, because this, if you start using language that's become out of date or become tarnished or even very much ruined by the way that things have evolved in the marketplace, then that's just a massive turnoff. For example, any tech startup talking about joining their rocket ship and lauding the fact that there's double on target earnings and there's uncapped commission and uncapped PTO, like limitless PTO, all these things now just wash over people because everyone's been shouting the same words and singing the same hymns for the last number of years. What are some of those very common bits of dialogue and playbooks and verbiage that's been thrown out in the market that's become so overused now that it will put channel partners off and channel sellers off?
Yeah, so I don't know that I have a good answer for that, because everybody, I don't know what's been overused or hasn't been overused per se. What I will say, I can tell you what's been underused. I can certainly go down that path, right? And so, first and foremost, what's been underused is that we haven't structured the go-to-market of the partner seller, meaning that we haven't built a really good playbook typically, and a lot of times the playbooks come from marketing, so it's a lot of marketing materials, and it's more of it's almost like a bolt-on to this opportunistic channel model, which is, hey, send this messaging over, and here's some additional collateral that you can send if you get a hit, and give us a call and we'll pull our sales rep onto it, and then we're kind of off and running. And that's what's typically being done. But
Mm.
a really good sales play is not a marketing document. It is a strategy document. It is literally identifying a market opportunity. It's identifying how we are going to attack that market opportunity. We are going to map out the buyer's journey. What do they have to go through? Each stage of my buyer's journey. And we're going to resource each stage of that buyer's journey. And we're going to create the value that we need to position and the messaging we need to position at each stage. We're also going to look at our sales process, and we're going to align what we want the partner to do. And when I look at my sales process, we're going to determine, am I using Medic? Am I using Spin? Am I using Winning by Design, Challenger? Like, what is my sales process? And I'm going to build the sales play with the right kind of qualification questions in there. So everything's sort of mapping back to my sales process as a vendor. And we're going to literally create the step-by-step recipe. How do I identify accounts? What's my messaging when I've identified those accounts? Who are the personas that I'm going after? What's my messaging by persona? Once I get a meeting, what's the qualification questions that I'm going to ask? I'm not selling my solution in the first meeting. I'm selling the next step in the process. Am I trying to sell them to an assessment? Am I selling them to move to a demo? So it's just all these different steps that you have to resource to create the breadcrumbs to get you to where you need to be. And that's what's missing today, is that we, again, going back to this opportunistic channel, I'm just hoping that something happens when I do my product enablement with the partner seller, as opposed to giving a structured prospecting process, a structured coverage model that says, hey, here's my ICP of the accounts I want to go after. Here's how I'm scoring relationships, your relationships with the economic buyer within an account that's an ICP, and I'm going to map that account based on those two elements. So there's just a whole lot that goes into this that people don't think about, and it's why the results don't show up. That was a long answer, but
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I can understand that. I think it might well be that the task of giving channel collateral on Playbooks is just given to a more junior marketing resource, just because it's like we need to tick that box. But these are people, like you talked about, partner sellers, and they want to be successful. And if someone's taken the time to coach them, train them, and enable them, and get them excited about what the solution, so that they feel confident they can handle that situation when they actually are in a conversation with a customer, and it's going to be profitable for them. Of course, they're going to talk about your solution with prospects versus someone who just sent over a PDF playbook and asked, when you need some help, just let us know.
Yeah. And I think there's two motions there, right? One is when you're in a meeting and you uncover hey, I want you to, every time you hear trouble ticket issues, I want you to think about this technology, and I want you to go position this. So that's sort of one way of training people. And that's still kind of reactive in the way that we operate. The other way is I want you to be proactive, and I'm going to go out and target a set of accounts along the way. And again, positioning what we want to say. But every step of that journey to create that proactive seller, I need to show up and I need to speak differently to that guy. Everybody was showing up and saying, hey, I want to tell you about my product. When I show up and I'm enabling, I'm like, hey, Richard, here's the deal. If you give me 3 weeks of your time, 10 minutes a day for 3 days, I'm going to help you generate within 3 weeks a $20,000 commissionable opportunity. Are you interested? That's the message, literally that simple. And we do the same thing as we're out talking to clients. We're talking about their problems and how we're going to help. We're not even talking about, I don't get to a product discussion until the third step of the sales journey, right? So it really is about hitting those type of things. And that's what's missing from the channel. We want to talk about our product. Nobody cares about our product. What we care about is if you're a seller making money. So let's talk about that, right?
Yeah, love it.
So anyway.
Love it. Number 3, Craig, on your list of lies, activity equals results. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, that's a big one. And again, it goes back to that whole kind of unstructured performance model. When we run around, and this is what happens, and I'm going to say something that all my channel people are going to be upset with me about, but it's a truth. So we got to kind of deal with the good and the bad with the channel. A lot of channel account managers hide behind activity. So we end up showing up. we go through a partner enablement, we go through a product enablement story, and it becomes a checkbox activity. And we go back and say, hey, I enabled 4 partners this week. I did this, I did that. And it's not that the channel people are trying to be dishonest or anything along those lines. They haven't been equipped as channel managers to go out and deliver a strategy. They've been equipped to manage a process. And those are 2 different worlds, right? So, so activity doesn't equal results. Structured strategy is what's going to end up delivering those results. So we have to retool both the channel account manager, we have to retool the process, and we have to provide the recipe we want people to follow. We have to enable that recipe. So I'm not a big believer in measuring activity. I'm a big believer of measuring the right activity to actually deliver those results. So that's what I meant by that.
Amazing. And what are some of those metrics that you believe should always be included within a successful channel model?
Yeah. So again, my model turns the channel into a math equation, and the core of the model is active sellers. So what I'm trying to measure is how many active sellers do I have? How many accounts are we engaged in on a quarterly basis? What my engagement rates are, meaning how many meetings did I generate from those outreaches? And then how many of those meetings transition to a quoted opportunity? So that's the conversion rate. And then how many of those quoted what's the average deal size for those quoted opportunities? And then obviously I want to know what the close rate is. So all of that becomes this math equation that we measure against, and that's how you deliver results on the channel side. It's not about number of partners that you generate, and this is part of the story that I tell everybody. You can have these what are called long tail partners. So you have that 20% that's delivering results, and that 80% that you have, they're called long tail because they're much smaller in the revenue, so it looks like a tail at the end.
Sure.
And this is a struggle that every channel leaders have. Like, hey, how do I turn up these long tail partners? Well, I don't want you to turn up the long tail partners. I want you to turn up the sellers within the long tail partners. So let's go peel off 2 or 3 sellers in every one of these partners, enable them with a strategy, enable them with a target account planning process, and let's go and execute against that. And you'll start to see as they find success, it'll start resonating with others, and we'll start turning up partners in general as those metrics go up. But these are the kind of challenges that people have. And, you have to have strategy in what you're doing and how you do it. But anyway,
yeah.
Sorry, Richard.
The language you're using makes perfect sense to me, but I've not heard anyone else using it before. So I love that. So if you've heard those questions and you don't know the answer, then probably you should definitely engage with Craig. We'll talk about how to do that in just a moment. Number 4 really stood out to me in terms of the lies. People care about your partner program. Why it stood out to me is because the most common way I see people advertising jobs on LinkedIn is to say, we are really excited about this new opportunity to join our amazing team. And it's like, people don't care, and then they talk about this, a bunch of fluff around the company and then a load of responsibilities, don't even include the salary. And people are like, what? Suddenly no one's applying for your job. Well, why is that? Because you're not talking to what matters. You've also talked about how a lot of people go out and say, here's our product. And they go product, product, product. And people don't care about your product. They care about themselves and they care about their problems.
Right.
Why don't people care about your partner program?
Yeah. So, by the way, I got to say a couple of things. I'm not down on partner programs. So anybody listening to this, I'm not anti-partner program by any way, shape, or form. It's foundational. I think it's really important. The problem is it stops short. So if we were to think about, if you had 3 cups on a table, and the first cup was the vendor, the middle cup was the partner, and the last cup was the target market. All our partner program is doing is it's focused on the vendor and the middle cup, right? It's the partner and the vendor. And we're talking about, how we transact business and how we're going to resource you as a partner. So we're sort of structuring all of that so we keep consistency and fairness in the partner community, right? But from the partner to the market is totally unstructured. We allow every partner to kind of do whatever they're going to do without a lot of structure. We just sort of hope things show up. So my issue with the partner program focus is the partner program does not produce revenue for you. It's the partner to the market that's going to produce revenue. So why do we emphasize the partner program rather than emphasize the enablement of your go-to-market strategy, and the partner program just being a foundational element to that. So nobody cares. Like nobody's, when you show up to enable a partner and you go, hey, here's my partner program, nobody cares because everybody's got the same partner program. Oh, I'm getting 30% off there and 30% off here, and it's 20 points of margin or whatever. Like it's all relatively the same. So let's not market that. Let's go market how we're going to make it easy and profitable for you to sell. That's what's going to move the needle.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Yeah. So number 5, I don't need help. Why is that a lie?
Oh my gosh. Well, this is one of the biggest issues in my mind, right? Which is everybody feels like, and I'll use this analogy, especially channel leaders. They're all amazing at what they do. They really are. And using the analogy of a race car driver, a Formula One race car driver, they're all, professionals. They're all really, really good. So because they're really good at driving the car, they don't, if somebody like me or another consultant comes in and says, hey, I want to show you and help you out, they're like, hey, I don't really need help. I'm a professional driver. I made it all the way up to here and I'm in the big race and I'm in the Grand Prix. Everything's great, right? The problem is, think about everybody, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Steph Curry, Ronaldo, whoever it is, everybody has coaches. Everybody has somebody that they go to for mentorship or help and everything else. But the channel typically doesn't do that. Everybody wants to kind of do it alone because at the end of the day, they're all pretty good at what they do. So what I always go in and say, look, I'm not here to tell you how to drive your car. You're better at driving the car than I'll ever be, but I'm going to add 300 to 400 more horsepower to your car. I'm the mechanic that can go and do that. And that's essentially what a really good coach does. Like Tiger Woods is an example. Nobody's saying they're going to be a better golfer than Tiger Woods. What they're saying is, I can help you I can see things in your swing that you can't see. And I'm here to help you correct that so that you can be better. Not that I can play as good as you. And that's the problem. We all want to go it alone when we really do need help. So
yeah, makes a lot of sense. And what's the one truth, Craig?
Yeah, so the one truth is we got to do things different. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. If we keep doing the same thing we've done over and over again and expect different results, that's the definition of insanity. So how do we actually go about and produce different results? And part of that is being flexible. I'll go back to an earlier part of our conversation. Like when I'm working with a team, I don't come in and say, hey, you got to run it my way. I come in and say, no, I have a set of processes and ways to go to market. You've got a set of truths and a set of processes and things that we have to fit what I do into or what you do into what I do. So it's really a collaboration to build their strategy, not my strategy, right? So the idea of being flexible, being innovative, thinking about what the real problems are and backwards engineering how we solve those problems is how we're going to move the needle. It's not about running the playbook from the past. So we have to do things differently. We have to be innovative, and we have to look at adopting new technologies because every single thing is changing, and we're in an amazing, innovative time for the channel right now. So that's the one truth. Everybody should be looking for outside help. Everybody should be, leveraging really good companies and good people that could help move the needle on their strategies.
Sure, makes a lot of sense. And so let's say someone's watching this and they're going, right, I really need to justify the value of my channel. I need to prove that I can make it work. My job might be on the line. Certainly the growth of my company can depend on this. Or maybe they've got really specific questions around, well, how many active sellers do we actually have? And, how many meetings are we getting? And what are our conversion rates? What's the best way for them to get in contact with you to help to start answering some of those questions?
Yeah, so one, you can go straight to my website, which is www.channel-force.com, and you can schedule a meeting with me there. You can hit me up on LinkedIn as well. Just send me a meeting invite or a connection request, and I'll jump onto that. But yeah, going back to, I have a process called MP3 where we literally do territory planning and revenue planning for partners and channel account managers. So we'll define all the metrics that you need to hit. We build sales plays for people. We have a structured co-sell and coverage model that we teach people. We resource that again with sales plays. And then I have an application called Performance IQ that actually captures the prospecting activity of the partner seller and then spins that out as a dashboard at the partner seller level, the sales play level, and the channel account manager level that shows that math equation. Number of active sellers that you have running at the partner level or at the sales play level, the number of accounts that you're calling on, the engagement rates, conversion rates, average deal size, all of that is, becomes actionable data that we can manage too. So, and it fills in that visibility gap that I was talking about, that every channel leader is struggling with, and the CROs are struggling with when they're delivering results and activities up to the board. They can now pull this dashboard up and say, here's the trending analysis on number of active sellers, here's the trending analysis on revenue, deal size, all of that. So this becomes really super easy for them to articulate the value of the channel. So.
Perfect. Well, we'll put a link to your website and your LinkedIn profile in the comments below. So if you are interested, please make sure you get in contact with Craig. I've spoken to a lot of people in this industry and no one talks with the level of experience or sensible methodology that Craig does. So please do hit him up. And Craig, thank you so much for your time. It's been absolutely fantastic to hear you sort of elaborate within the article that you wrote, which I loved, but also just talk so clearly about why channel is such an amazing opportunity if you know what to do, because you can do it for half the cost and get twice the results. So thank you for giving up your time to share that with us today.
No, thank you, Richard. This has been fantastic. Really appreciate it and appreciate you.
Good man. All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for listening, for everyone, and we'll see you on the next episode.